Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dan-A-Plooza. I am very welcome to be reunited with my guest at this time, director, actor, and producer, Henry Haggard.
Hi.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's really makes me look really old. Raise the roof.
It's raising the roof.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, it's so great to have you on here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to.
So for those of you who are tuning in, Henry and I were together at a theater company called Kentucky Repertory Theater back in 2007.
Yeah, a while back.
It's a long, long time ago.
Well, and it seems like only yesterday in some ways.
Yep, I have gotten more beard though, I think.
I've probably got a little less hair and probably a few more pounds.
All right, let's go into our first question. You are known for the role of Chugnorris in the VeggieTales.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you got that role?
It's actually kind of an interesting story. They were looking for an actor here in town, Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, where they tape out in actually Franklin, out in Cool Springs, at their studio, really cool studio. And they were looking for an actor that could do a Scottish dialect. And a friend of mine had a friend who was in that studio who said, "Oh, I know a guy." And they contacted me and sent me a script. And they said, "Just do a Scottish accent with this script." And so like interaction between 2 or 3 characters. So I did, of course, all the voices for all the characters. And I didn't know VeggieTales really, and I didn't know the music. So I just made up music. And all in a Scottish dialect, and tried to do different Scottish dialects and sent it to him. And I sent it, and that was the first time I'd ever done that too on my phone. Just recorded it and sent it. And I mean, it wasn't 10 minutes later, I got a text from them that said, "You're hired."
Wow.
Well, I usually that involves a lot of back and forth between agents and all that stuff. So it was a direct, hire at this time too. And yeah, so, and they pay very well. They're very good to their talent. It's under new Mike Nowicki, who was one of the original guys that came up with VeggieTales back in the day, who's fabulous and does almost all the voices on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he one other guy. I think they have a woman that they use a lot, but they don't hire a lot of people in. So, pardon me. Okay. So anyway, I went down there, recorded for 8 hours maybe, and then I also did their the narration for their Christmas special that next year, except for I got preempted because they hired. I got bumped for I still got paid. But I got bumped for the Uncle something on Uncle Si from Duck. That I said, well, I defer to Uncle Si. I can't compete with that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Can we hear one of Chuck Norris's lines?
What did he? Get off the lawn! Always yelling at the kids. I just know that he was old. He was pretty much a Scottish cucumber who was mad at the kids all the time. They had VeggieTale Wars, that version of it. It's very kind of nonviolent, but so when I did the ADR, when I was recording some of the grunts and when Chuck falls off of a cart and falls to the ground. That's when I got to watch the animation, because the animation's already completed.
Right.
And I watched the animation, and that's when it started fascinating me, because otherwise you're blind in the booth and you just have the image of the character in your head, which was quite fun. Yeah.
You're like, that's me falling.
Well, we don't have children, so I was like calling friends, what is VeggieTales?
Google, help me.
Right now.
Well, everyone, where they can probably still check that out, right? That's probably still available on DVD. And
last night I had friends visiting on the porch, and a friend of mine brought his father over, And when they found that out, he pulled it up and played like, just a few minutes on his phone of that episode.
Well, we'll share it here in Dan-A-Plooza so everyone can enjoy
it. Look much like me.
All right. Moving on. Let's talk about, because I found this very interesting. When you were in the film Boulevard, which is the one of the last films that the great Robin Williams was a part of and acted in. Yep. Tell me what that experience was like, being his boss and being on that film.
All right, I'll try to do the Reader's Digest version of it. It is a fair story because I mostly did live theater, as you know. Mm-hmm. And this is circa 2012, last part of 2012, beginning of 2013. And I made the decision to do less theater, make myself more available and I hadn't had an agent previous. I was actually independent for the most part. And so I got an agent, and the very first audition she sent me out for was Boulevard. However, it was for another character. It was for a much, much smaller role, saying one line. And so I went into the initial audition. I did my one line as best I could. I walked out. I got a call back. And the call back was at a different location. And this time I was in the room with the director, which is always a really, really good sign for any actors if you can get into the room with the director, because, film is complicated, a lot different than theater, where theater can be one person making that decision. Film is generally not just one person. It's several off on casting, especially if you're an unknown, which largely that's, what I am. And so I went to the callback and I read that one line as best I could. But there was another role that had 5 scenes, three with Robin Williams, but had 5 scenes in the movie. That's a pretty big role for a no name. And so I was hoping they would. You can't feasibly ask to read that role. I mean, some people would say, you could take a shot, and if it's the right person, they might go, well, I like your moxie. But typically that's frowned upon. You don't go in there. You go for we're called for, and you don't say, could I read for the lead? So I didn't dare ask, but I had looked at the spec on it and I realized I fit it really well. And so as I was walking out, what I hoped happened. The casting director came running after me and said, Henry, do you have a few minutes to stick around? And I went, yes, I do. And Beaumont, which is the character I ended up playing. And so I went in and did 2 scenes for him. And then I went home, and then you, of course, wait for a week and don't hear anything. And then they called and they said, we would like you to come in with all 5 scenes memorized. And
oh, wow.
It's fun. That's the fun part for me. So I went in, and actually that's, and I really, the whole time I thought, I'm not going to get this. Nobody's going to film with Robin Williams. But they did. And the cherry on top was I knew that the location was going to be an old bank, because I was playing, his character worked at the bank, and my character was his boss. And I realized that since the 2008 crash, we had 3 defunct banks right up the road from me. And I was like, I won. And sure enough, when I got, they don't tell you where the location is till the night before. They send me the location. I put it into Google Maps, and it is 0.3 miles from my house. So I walked walked up. Home base was in a church parking lot, and then they shuttled us down to the bank, which was ridiculously close, but they still. And when I got to set, I knew the director. I had met him, and he said, have you met Robin yet? And I said, no. And so he put me in. He goes, come on. And we went down to the bank, and there's Robin Williams standing on the set by himself. And they walked me in and introduced me to Robin Williams. And I shook his hand, and I said, it's a pleasure to work with you, sir. And he said, likewise. And then we sat down to rehearse our scene. And as we sat down to rehearse our scene, I looked across at him and kind of floated out of my head, if you know what I mean. But I got to spend, I don't know how many hours. 3 days with him on the sets with, 12-hour days. And we frequently would run lines off to the side. And he was so nice. And we would sit and just jaw. And the gift I gave him is I was in the 8th grade when Mork and Mindy came out. And a huge fan from the get-go. His stand-up, in the 80s, early 80s, he had a stand-up special that I could recite you word for word. But the gift, everybody does that to him. And so I never told him I was a fan. I never, I was very nice to him. And I think he kind of appreciated that. he was playing a very depressing character. If you've seen the film,
Right.
he tended to, when he came out of we'd go into a break, he would be really up, and very gregarious. So a couple of those times I was the private audience, and he would do a 5-minute improv takedown of Nashville
Wow.
music or something, and
Yeah.
laugh so hard, and people would poke their heads back and look at us laughing, and everybody, friends who were on set, were like, later on, "What were you laughing at? What was he saying?" And I go, "I don't remember. I was out of my head." I said, "It's you can't process sitting with somebody that is such a legend, in so many ways, and you're trying to keep it cool and act normal. And for the most part, I mean, you look and you go, he's just a guy, very,
Yeah.
very, very, very funny guy, very, very famous guy." But it was absolutely an amazing experience. And also, I didn't get to work with Bob Odenkirk, but Bob Odenkirk was on that as well, and Kathy Baker, who I did get to work with. And Kathy Baker, Picket Fences is what she's mostly known for, I suppose. And she was delightful. And she has a heavy theater background, so and so does Robin, for that matter, too. So yeah, it was an amazing experience. I hope to repeat something like it one day. I'm sorry I won't be with him.
Well, we'll have to encourage everyone to check that out, and I'm glad that you got to have that experience. He's always been one of my favorite actors that I've always looked up to, and I feel like it would be hard for any actor to not want to, show how much you love and appreciate him, but to try to pull it back some, so you can respect his craft.
He had a lot of lines, and I would see him go off, and he would work on his script and stuff. And he's doing the stuff that I know because I've done it when I've had a big line load, a big chunk. And so, he was working, and I thought, how distracting if you've got your coworkers in your face going, "And can you autograph my shoe?" I didn't do that to him. He, by no means did I try to assert myself as an equal. At the same time, I just kept it as professional as possible, which I think is what the expectation was. There were extras who were very much clawing to try to, get close to him and stuff. And he was so friendly, but he traveled with his makeup artist and his manager were both with him, and they were both women of an age, and they had mom voices, I guess you'd say. It's like when they said something, they could do it without offending you, but Robin would never tell these people to go away, but these ladies would come out and go, "Shoot, get out of here. Robin's busy."
Go.
Yeah. Horrible. And I lived in fear they would do that to me, because a couple times when I go over to ask him a question, I thought, I hope that lady doesn't come out and tell me to go away.
Just kind of inch over.
Yeah. What next? Bring it on.
Well, it actually does help because I've done some films as well, and I forget the name of the big actress, but we were doing like an airplane scene, and they're like, "Don't look at her, don't talk to her, don't do this, don't do that." So
I know that there's a myriad of experiences. And I've had a lot of friends who have worked with a lot of stars, and I was on The Resident, a little bit Fox series that's on a couple years ago, that I got a co-star role on it for just a day on the set. And those guys, and a lot of people, Bruce Greenwood, who is like, a lot of people don't know his name, but you would know the actor when you saw his face, and Glenn Morshower, both. And they were absolutely delightful and really friendly. So I've been really lucky, because I walk into that situation thinking, is this going to be one of those situations where they say something like, "Don't," because I really don't know how I would respond to that. But if you've got, scene work with the actor, I don't see how. I mean, although I know people who've had scene work with those actors. And I'll say this about Robin Williams. In film, when you're turning around sides, they're taping a conversation, and you show me and then you show him. And so a lot of times, and I knew that this was the case, is that they'll put the stand-in in when they do my side, like especially with a star. A star will go off, he'll work on it. But Robin Williams stood across from me. Every line I delivered, I'm delivering it to Robin Williams' face.
Wow.
He never, not once, did that. That was amazing to me. And of course, I did that same for him as well. But it's not. I told somebody that in Talongo, who's been in the industry quite a long time, and they said, "Really? He did them all?" And I said, "He did every single line. If I delivered a line to his character, he was standing on the other side of the camera." every single time. He said he said he's done films where the stars they're never on the other side of the camera. They'll do their side and then they're gone. They're off to the trailer.
Well, I think that's just amazing, and that speaks volumes about him and the performer he is.
Doesn't it?
Tell me about the new project you're on, sci-fi podcast, Southbridge.
That's one of them. I've got a couple, but yes, Southbridge is. I did it so long ago. It is a podcast right now. It really actually it's sci-fi, and I love sci-fi. That's my jam. Although I'm now branching out into horror. I just wrapped a horror feature, and I'm shooting another horror feature in March. This Southbridge, though, is by producer, director, writer Tiffany Murray, who is amazing young, up and coming. Now she was in LA. Now she's in New York. She started as a camera person, and I did another short film with her a while back. I'll Be Here, which was about sort of the end of the world. I played basically the last guy on Earth. I think you can access that on YouTube. I'll Be Here. Henry Haggard should get you there, or Tiffany Murray. But then she had the idea for this podcast. She was trying to turn it into a live action series, whatever. And she couldn't quite get the funding, especially this is all during the pandemic. She couldn't get the funding. So she took the money she had and decided to do it just as a narrative podcast. And I play, oh my gosh, what's the character's name now? I don't remember.
He's homeless.
I should have had my notes out here. I don't have any.
I want to say it starts with an X.
Well, yes, it is. Yeah, gosh, Tiffany would shoot me.
Mr. X.
I have to go look at I can't look at it because I'm using my phone as my camera. But it's a really interesting piece, and I encourage everybody to listen to it. It's fascinating. I think it's 4 episodes. I'm not sure if they're out yet, actually. So hold off on that. I know that, but she decided to turn it into a narrative podcast. So she was in LA at the time, and I recorded here in that. Of course, excuse me, Nashville has 1 million recording studios, and I live close to a lot of them. So we recorded at a studio about 3 or 4 hours of the day, and we were done. Recorded all my stuff. I had a reader that was there, so I wasn't with the other characters, but I basically play a crazy man. A bit of a conspiracy theorist. He shows up with these guys that are trying to survive. Somebody's trying to kill him, and it's fascinating. It's got all kinds of. You don't know quite where you are, if the apocalypse has happened, if the world is ended. Those questions are answered along the line, so it's very intriguing. You're kind of just thrown in with the characters, which I love, to start trying to figure out exactly what is going on here. And it has a great reveal too. There's a everything you thought was going on wasn't really going on. That's all I'll say.
When you say end of the world, it reminds me of the REM song, It's the End of the World as We Know It.
Love that. But yeah, Southbridge is absolutely. And so the idea is that maybe somebody will listen to the podcast too and give Tiffany the money to actually produce it. It would be great, for Amazon Prime or one of those. Netflix, absolutely, but Amazon Prime, I think it fits better just because it's kind of weird. And Amazon Prime has had some lovely sci-fi that's kind of weird.
And for those watching, we have that rolling in the ticker right now. For those that want to see Southbridge, go to the website, southbridgepodcast.com, and that's where you can find out all the information.
I see.
Hey, hello.
People do that all the time, but I never know what they're doing, and now I do.
And finally, we'll talk about, so you were known for, when I first met you, being a theater actor, for productions of A Greater Tuna and A Tuna Christmas, playing several characters. 22?
22 characters for those.
Wow.
Each actor, 22.
Tell me what it was like playing all those characters and the challenges.
hard, and the most fun that you could ever ask for. I miss it dearly. Robert, of course, Kentucky Rep no longer exists. It is now a church, the building. I have not seen it. I have not been by there since it closed and ended. Robert Brock, our dear leader, is teaching at a college in Columbia, Kentucky.
Okay.
Lindsay Adair College, I'm going to say it is. That's probably not quite right. It's a wonderful historic college, very, very small theater program. He is the department, essentially. I've actually, a friend of mine is started dating a young woman recently, and he introduced me to her, and she said she had gone to that college and was a theater major. And so we realized we both knew Robert, which was, we took selfies, and I texted him and all that stuff. And I've talked to Robert. I talked to him probably a few months ago. He's doing great. He and Tammy live still in the same house they were when we were working in Horse Cave. They're in Glasgow there. But anyway, working on those shows with him, Robert and I had known each other for a long time, and we did. Mostly, he directed me in some shows when I was in college, and he back as a graduate student and had done like a adjunct professorship there for just a little while. And then we didn't see each other for a very long time, for 20 years probably. And then Horse Cave Theater came up, and I realized I'd gone up and auditioned right before Robert took over as artistic director. And he had the idea for these Tunis things. So that was one of those things I didn't really have to audition for. He just called me and goes, "I'm going to do the other half. You want to do it?" And I was like, "Yes." So we did, I don't know how many. I think we did a Christmas tuna 5 times. And it's just wackiness, because a lot of that piece especially involves the backstage, as you will know.
Oh, yeah.
What happens backstage, and it's craziness, because you got there's many dogs referenced. There's other characters that you'll be talking as that character backstage as you're changing into another character to make an entrance. And it all happens lightning fast, and it can't be pulled off without really good backstage dressers and technicians. That's the thing. There's only 2 actors in it, but you've got, for ours, it was really scaled down. We had it down tight. I think we only had maybe 5 people backstage, 5 or 6. I've seen productions where and the guys that originated the roles, they don't do it anymore, but they used to come through Nashville all the time. They've got like 16 people backstage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but they also had, the budgets to do. We did really well with our budget as far as quick changes go, but they had actual, fat suits and stuff that you could zip somebody up into like lightning, So shows like that. And of course, I've done them at that time, especially. I was doing so many different shows, and it's my favorite thing, because a lot of actors get boxed into a stereotype that you play. Like after doing Boulevard, for example, I played a banker. A lot of the offers that I was getting was lawyer, doctor, and sure, I can play that, and that's fun, but that's not where I love comedy a little bit more than I probably do playing straight roles. And so I kind of feel caged. It's like I can play reserve, but I don't like it. And so what's nice is when you're doing stage, is you don't get boxed in as much, because like at Horse Cave, I also played Mackers, Macbeth. I'm not in a theater, so I can say it. I played Macbeth, and I don't think you were around for that time, but that's a very serious role.
Oh, yeah.
I played a Philadelphia Here I Come was one of my favorite shows I think I've ever done. It's a Brian Friel play. And talk about a role where there's so much memorization, but it's so brilliantly written and funny about the U.S. So also an Irish dialect, which is, I love dialects and things like that. So Tuna kind of offers the dialect, the Southern every Southern dialect you can imagine yourself doing. So you have to make each character slightly different. Plus, you're playing women. Which is also, I was shaven then, but I would say it's a safe bet that Robert and I are not attractive women. Of course, lends itself to a lot of the comedy, but it's also written very, very well. A little dated now. I think you can update them. We sort of updated them, I know, at the time to make jokes a little more current. But it's still, I think in the South, it just plays like gangbusters. In the North, I think it plays, but it plays in a different way.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's a great bridge for audiences because it's not like it's not one of those plays. Well, it pokes fun of the South itself, but they're Southern, and we were showing it in a Southern state, and we had people cracking up in the aisles. They literally, my biggest compliment after a show like that would be, "You hurt me." Laughing so hard, and I'm like, yes,
literally hurt. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to say or promote before we end this podcast?
Yeah, I do actually. So I just wrapped a horror feature, and so keep your eyes out for it. It's right now untitled, but I will say this: it is a sort of an American version of Squid Game.
Okay.
So it's horror, and it was great fun to shoot. We shot it in about days. It will be available to you free. Look for it on Tubi and possibly YouTube sometime in late February, early March. And then also in further looking for same studio, High Octane Studios, if you want to go to their website. They also were doing Pinocchio.
Okay.
Horror version of Pinocchio. I will be playing Geppetto. And I'm really looking forward to shooting that. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's the writer on it is Aaron Murdes. He's also the director and the cinematographer. And he's fabulous to work with. This will be my third project with him. And also keep an eye out for a project called Bad Gadget. That is a comedy short. It is sort of an ode to Rick and Morty.
Oh, there you go.
I obviously play not Morty. I am obviously more the Rick type. And it is fun. It's a little, these are all sort of PG-ish, but they're a little blue. They're a little adult content. And I want to thank you for having me on here, Dan. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Everyone stay tuned. Dan-A-Plooza. Our next guest, Joey Medea, will be on shortly.
Joey
Have
Medea.
a good day.
Bye.